All right, everyone keeping a close eye on their money these days, how much they're spending and hopefully saving and what's happening to their investments. It adds up to one very specific question, though. How much is enough to retire? While everyone has a different number, we can all follow a basic guideline. So we're learning more in this segment, sponsored by Safe Harbor Retirement Group. And Corey Sickles back with me. Good to have you, Corey.
Glad to be here, Robin.
All right, you get so many questions every day from your clients, but what tends to be the most common question out of all of them?
Well, Robin, the most common question is A, when can I retire? It kind of goes with that. What is my magic number that I need to get to in order to retire? And the simple answer is this: everybody's situation is different. Everybody has different income needs. And my job is to work with somebody to determine what that magic number is when you can retire and have, really the most important part is have a successful retirement. That's what my job is really to do.
That seems like a daunting task. So how do you get started?
Well, the first thing we kind of have to do is go through your expenses. What are you really going to need, during your retirement years? What are really hard expenses? Hopefully you're in a position where maybe you've paid off your mortgage, which should be your highest expense in retirement. But, we kind of look at all your expenses and maybe what you want to do. A lot of people like to travel those first 5 to 10 years. And then we kind of, start putting together an income plan to kind of meet those needs. And of course, with all that being said, the big part of it is what's your investment portfolio look like in order to help get you, to where you need to.
You mentioned the mortgage, and sometimes that's the biggest expense. But do your expenses then tend to go down in retirement? Because many people, have paid off that mortgage by then.
Right. So if you're in a position where you can pay your mortgage off, believe me, you're a lot better. There are going to be some expenses that do go away, right? You're not going to have to be paying as much more in payroll taxes and, what you're doing while you're working. You might not have to drive into work, even though that's kind of changing now, or going out to lunches and things like that. But there's going to be some added expenses that kind of go through retirement as well. And, one of them could be healthcare, as you kind of go through your years. And a lot of people travel, you start to go out and see your children and grandchildren that are probably not maybe living in the town you live in. So at the end of the day, your expenses could go up or it could be close, but we kind of use about an 80% rule of when you retire. That's what hopefully your expenses will drop down to.
Corey, I also want to mention that women typically live longer than men. That has always been the case, but yet everyone is living longer these days, right? And that should be taken into consideration.
If you're in your 60s, we're building income plans to last, at least 30 years. Odds are, if you're married, one of you is probably going to make it, into your 90s. That's just the fact of life. And I think one thing that really people need to consider when we start kind of talking about all that is you need to make sure that, you're going to have enough money that's going to last your lifetime. And the best way to do that is really to sit down, with us. And we put together the income plan. What's it going to look like, in your 80s and 90s as well? Because it's a big thing that's really, people are living longer, and it's something that I think a lot of people are worried about is outliving their money.
And so anything else they need to keep in mind, Corey, that you want to put out there?
Yeah, I think the one thing that people don't realize is they think if I retire today, that's all the money I'm going to need. And I'm going to give an example here. So let's just say you want to retire today. Maybe you only want to make $50,000. What people don't realize is 20 years from now, with inflation built into that at about a 2.5% rate, that needs to be $81,000 20 years from now. And I think a lot of people have a tough time of realizing that they want to retire today, but they don't actually look at, do I have enough money to be able to increase my expenses on an annual basis going forward to keep up with expenses?
Yeah, and inflation, like we're seeing right now, it could also differ year from year. So all that needs to be considered, right, as you're making this plan. And the first initial consultation, always complimentary with Corey. So safeharboroh.com, you can check that out today. Corey, thank you.
Thank you, Robin.